All right. We jamming over here. Welcome to Wednesday Night Chats with Dads. I am your host, King Smith. Hey man, I like that I have sound effects, and my nice, lovely assistant is working with me this evening. Shout out to my assistant. Thanks for doing a good job. All right. So Wednesday Night Chats with Dads. This is where I have a conversation with other fathers out there about life as a father. All right. What's it like being a dad? All right. This is a chance to get men to talk about the things that's on their mind. And it's not just about, being a father, but I try to have a theme with different episodes that I have as well. Okay. This theme that I have is something that people are talking about more now. All right. And that's the subject around mental health. My guest tonight, me and him have a podcast that we run bi weekly called the Just Joe King podcast. Go check it out. You'll find us on YouTube. We have a Facebook community page as well as all major podcasting platforms. We've covered this subject on our podcast, all right? But being that Joe is a father, I wanted to have him come on to this platform, the actual King Smith YouTube channel, and chop it up with me. All right. So me and him, we've worked together for a while. We know each other's, families and stuff like that. And Joe has agreed to come on to my chats with Dad. So without further ado, clap it up for Joe Nieves. What's up, brother?
What's up, man?
Hey, man, I'm getting a little bit better at this technology stuff, and the fact that I've got my assistant over here helping me out, man, I'm making things run along a lot smoothly. First of all, thank you for taking an hour out of your Wednesday night to join me. So shout out to you. We're starting a little bit early today, and that's okay because you know what? It's my show, and I can do what I want.
Pretty much.
So, Joe, me and you have a lot of things in common. We both served in the U.S. military. That's where we differ, though, in that I was in the Air Force. You were in the Army. How long did you serve in our U.S. Armed Forces, brother?
12 years.
12 years. And what'd you do?
I did multiple things. I started off as a commo guy or signal support system specialist. I made radios work and set up antennas and networked radios and stuff like that. Then for a short period of time, I was a health inspector for the Army.
Mm-hmm.
That was fun. And then I ended my career with broadcast journalism. So
Broadcast journalism. Now, is that just like video stuff, or is that video digital? Like, how does that work?
It's a little bit of all of that. I could be like a stand-up news reporter for the military, or what I predominantly did was news pieces in the form of like 2-minute news videos where the service members would be what you saw and what you heard. Like I did a lot of them narrating. I enjoyed doing those videos more, but like it could have been me narrating, talking about events and sharing the news with their videos. Um, yeah, it is a lot of that. And it was a lot of fun too.
Okay, so it sounded like And correct me if I'm wrong, you have to do a little bit of storytelling. All
Hmm.
right.
For sure.
Okay, cool, cool. Well, hey man, I'm going to get you to help tell a story tonight, if you will. Um, so in the subject of the title, and me and you have talked about this before. So as much as you want to share, um, I'm going to ask you to talk about some various things. All right. Let me lead off by saying this: there are things that are happening in people that the outside folks can't see. Wildly different between you and I. I
Hmm.
have heart disease. As far as I know, I'm the only one in my family that has heart disease. So I can't just reach out to somebody whenever there's something going on that I'm thinking about. They can be like, "Hey, man, so when you turn 40, like, how did this affect you?" I don't have that person to talk to. Now, we've talked about this publicly in the past, and you shared. And what I find interesting about it is that if unless you told me, I don't think I would have known it because you can't see it. All right.
Yeah.
So mental health and mental illness. Okay. When you hear those two different words, all right, what does mental health mean and what does mental illness mean?
So, mental health is what we all need to do to take care of ourselves, like therapy, relaxation, reading, learning, and practicing things to make yourself healthy, like you would do with your body, but you do it for your mind. Mental illness is the differing diagnoses that people have, talking about like what it is that they have, like if somebody had asthma. I don't like mental illness because it makes you sound sick. Um, and That's not necessarily the case. I mean, it's true, um, but it feels dirty. You know what I mean? Like it's almost got the connotation that you can't be healthy, even though with a mental illness, you can still be a healthy person. You can still be a functioning member of society. You can still be a normal seeming person. But mental illness ultimately is what it is that makes you you. Um, because to deny the person you are in spite of the illness would be to take value away from the person you've become in the face of that illness. You know what I mean?
All right. Now, how does somebody become diagnosed with a mental illness?
Well, I suppose it's different for everyone and the different types of diagnoses you could have. Um, for me, I was just living wrong. I didn't realize it. I had a lot of very dangerous lifestyle. Uh, I don't know how to explain that because it wasn't one thing. Like it wasn't a lifestyle choice. It was the way I was living was just dangerous and bad. And somebody took notice and thought it was something else, put me into an intensive therapy program, figured out what it really was, and started to help me get on the path to healthiness, wellness, I guess, as well as you could be in spite of a
Mhm.
lifelong diagnosis. Um, but yeah, for me, that's how it happened. It was living very dangerously, and somebody was like, "Whoa, this is not good," um, and helping ultimately, you know, putting me on the right path.
So, all right. So, let's say you and I were working together. Was this somebody that knew you very intimately to, take a look and go, "Hey, man, Joe's acting a little bit different," or was it somebody Joe's out here living reckless, as they say, or was it somebody that was in like a position of authority that noticed something that sparked those steps?
Yeah. So it was a person in a position of authority who didn't treat me like a lesser person. Um, he would go out on smoke breaks, and I didn't smoke, but I would go outside and take a smoke break. Like I'd go and sit in the smoke break area and bullshit with people. And he'd go and he'd smoke and we'd talk, and he basically he could see it in my eyes and he could smell it on my clothes. Like I was drinking heavily and my eyes were bloodshot. Like I was exhausted all the time. Um, I just and I'd get those like those 1,000 yard stares, the ones that the guys in Vietnam are always notorious for. Um, and he saw those things and he recognized them because he had been in a combat unit and had been with those people and had experienced those things. And he knew, and he had asked around and heard about like my behaviors and stuff like that, and took interest and actually cared. And yeah, and he put me. He said, I can tell something's wrong. We need to get you help, and he got me help.
So, Joe, was it forced though, or did you voluntarily like go? You know what? You right, man. You right. Like, how was your mindset at the time initially having that type of change catalyst come at you?
So I had had some experiences with some doctors previously, and I denied it, and I refused medication and treatment and care. And around this time, it was several months later, almost a year later, I was just bone tired, and I had a suicide attempt under my belt, and I was just like, okay, maybe he's right. Maybe something is wrong. Um, and I was just willing. I didn't have the fight in me to not do it, And because I was in the military when it happened, kind of, if he says something, is kind of, he was in that position that I had no choice. Um, I didn't fight him, but mostly because I didn't have the strength or will to fight. So.
Okay. Personal relationships. All
Mhm.
right. Around the time of your initial diagnosis and you first went in, man, talk to us a little bit about how your relationships were before diagnosis and, how things are like while you're, diagnosed and understanding everything a lot better.
Well, I was a very um, I wasn't independent. Like I was because I was, living on my own. I was where I was in the military, but I mean, ultimately, I was dependent on the military. But my biggest problem was I would define myself by the people I was around and with. Um, but like friendships and relationships, like friendships, I didn't really have a ton of. Um, I got close with some people, but I wasn't a healthy friend anyways. Like I wasn't somebody you could rely on, or you could trust me, but you couldn't rely on me. Um, and ultimately I was just chasing alcohol and stuff like that, and skirts, for lack of a better word. Um, and relationships, I would do anything to for the person to like me or love me or want to be with me. I would do anything. I would be whatever image I thought that person would want of me. But ultimately, that would fail because I was living this reckless, dangerous life. I was binging and just going on like 4 or 5 day benders, and um, like I couldn't manage my finances properly. Um, so ultimately, all of my relationships would fail. Um, my friendships weren't deep and meaningful. Some were, and some I've maintained over many years. But I'm not easy to get along with. Even now, it's hard to get
What?
along with me.
No way. No, man. I wouldn't say that at all. Because, I
Well,
mean, here's the thing. Like, even now, I have this mantra of if you're a negative, toxic person, and toxic, that word,
it's
sorry.
hard. Yeah,
But you know, if you fit that description,
yeah,
I don't have time for you, man. I have a lot going on. I like my friendships. I
yeah.
cherish my friendships. All
Same.
right.
Yeah,
And I treat my friends like family, you know, and I have a healthy respect for those that, you know, while we might not have similar thoughts or whatnot, if we can have a healthy respect for one another, then we're good. And
yeah,
man, I would not put in a category of somebody that, man, F that dude. You
yeah,
know, and like, I'm not saying that because we're friends, man. Over the last 2 to 3 years, I've lost two people, folks who I call brothers, man. They invited me into their house for Thanksgiving and stuff like that. Like, if you like, to me, you invite somebody into your home on a holiday like that, like, that's family, man.
yeah,
And I've had to, I ain't gonna say like I've had to cut people off. They cut me out is probably one of the best way, and that's fine. You know
yeah.
what I'm saying? But you know,
But
if
it
that's how
sucks.
somebody wants to operate, then
Yeah.
it is what it is, man. And I wouldn't put you in the category of somebody that's hard to deal with.
Well, I mean, yeah, and you see, I invite you over for Thanksgiving. You know what I mean? Because I count you as one of my best friends. You know what I mean? And and yeah, and I feel the same way. Like if I'm willing to invite you into my home on a day like Thanksgiving, it's because I count you as family. You know what I mean? And and I try to be so see that's the thing is like I have negative visions of myself. I think we all do that. I think a lot of
Mm,
people do that, and I view myself sometimes, and I feel like a lot of people with anxiety issues go through the same thing. I view myself as a weight, and I feel like I drag people down, and I don't want to do that with the issues that I deal with. I have to be careful that I don't speak negatively all the time because I feel like when depression hits, I'm super negative, and I don't want that to bleed into my relationships like it bleeds into my family sometimes. It's really hard because I live with them. They see me 24 hours a day almost, you know, right now with everybody working from home, you know, we see each other almost 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's impossible to hide those things from them because sometimes I'm not even aware that I'm doing those things or being that way. So I feel like I do that with my friends and I don't want to be that person. So I feel like I'm difficult to be around. Doesn't mean it's true, but it's definitely not always true. You know what I mean? Like there's got to be moments when that bleeds into my friendships too. That's just the nature of who we are and what we are. Um, so you know maybe it's negative talk and self image, but yeah, I feel like it's definitely been in my history. So it's one of those things that I fear. Like maybe
got
if
you.
it's not happening, I'm fearing that it would happen. Like
I understand.
canceling plans and stuff like that. Sometimes I feel like my friends won't keep inviting me because they're gonna be like, he's just gonna cancel.
Hey, you know, I smile and laugh because me and you have known each other since 2013, man. And there's been a couple of times you've canceled plans,
Mhm.
and I'm like, I know that Joe was looking forward to it. It kind of seems odd that he would cancel last minute, and even to this day, man. And you've expressed the same way that you're talking now. Why? And I'm glad that you're talking about this because, like, I don't understand it, you know. And
Yeah,
I can tell you just straight up, Joe, I can't understand how you're, you know, feeling or how you're thinking
yeah,
when I just saw you just yesterday. And you know, I let me talk as ignorant as I can be so that I can try to convey like how I'm thinking about it. Like, to me, you seem fine. But that's
yeah,
what we talk about when it's the stuff that you don't see. And I know that one of your favorite characters is the Joker. And when I titled this episode, I put the quote where he said, and you have to correct me, but it's like the worst part of having a mental illness is people expect you to behave as if you don't,
Hmm. Yeah.
right? So like me saying that talks right into what he quoted in that movie, man.
Hmm.
And it's one of those things that me knowing it's still difficult, when you're saying something and I'm like, I'm just not seeing that. I'm
Yeah.
not seeing it.
Well, I think a common theme you'll see from people with mental illnesses, um, ranging from super severe to super mild. It's the same common theme that, first off, we don't want people to view us differently because we just want to be normal, or at least this is my opinion. I don't want to speak for everybody. That's wrong of me, but I know I don't want to be viewed as anything other than normal. Even when I want somebody to feel, not feel, that's not true. That's not correct. Even when I want help from somebody, I don't want them to see what's wrong.
Hmm.
Like, we wear masks. We all wear masks. We all behave a certain way, for other people. Everybody does that, whether you have a mental illness or not. Everybody does these things that are expected of us, because it's the normal thing to do, or normal. Um, but we all wear masks. We all have to put up a face for society. Um, I can't be what I am behind closed doors every day for everybody because it's impossible. I have to be what's expected of me sometimes because that's the healthy thing to do, um, or at least it's the quote unquote normal thing to do. Um, but I deal with these deep periods of depression, these periods of high anxiety, and those are the times where I don't come out and I cancel stuff. So you don't see it. So you won't see it because I ultimately, I everybody has that right to experience that privately and personally, so that people can't judge them, because those are our weaker moments, or they feel like weak moments. Sometimes I feel pathetic when I'm depressed. Sometimes when I have high anxiety, I feel like I would come off as kind of dickish to people, even though it's not about them and it's not personal. So those moments, we try to hide them from the world because people paint pictures based off of your behavior, whether they know something's wrong or not, or even care, because they might not even care. They just, oh, he's an asshole. I don't like him. But you don't know. You don't know why. You don't understand what's going on. So a lot of people, like me specifically, or like, again, I can't speak for other people, but me specifically, I don't want that to bleed into life, like, because that's not part of, like, everybody else's experience, and it doesn't have to be. Um, Ultimately, I want people to think I'm normal, or see me as normal, because that's healthy, ish.
Got you. Yeah. It's one of those healthy. My command of the English language is absolute trash.
I still like
Absolute
to.
trash.
I
Uh,
have
uh,
a
uh,
pretty
uh,
good
uh, uh.
grasp, and I still like to make up words. So
But I try to show erudite qualities. I don't know. I say I don't even know if I use that right. But having or showing great knowledge or learning.
mm,
I'm trying to get there. I'm trying to get there, brother. For those of y'all that didn't catch that on Joe and I's podcast, the Just Joking podcast, he brings in a word of the day. All right. And I try to use that word of the day in a sentence on future episodes. So I tried to sneak one in there.
that's
I
a
don't
good
think I used it right, but you know what? I tried. Damn it.
one. That's all that matters.
Hey,
Learning. You're learning. You learned a new word and you tried to use it. That's important. That's just
yes,
as
sir.
important as mastering the English language, man. And
Yes,
that's all.
sir.
That's all we can do.
So, Joe, when I got my cardiac diagnosis, they went through my medical history, all right, to determine if it was always there or if it had developed. And then after that, as they're trying to determine if, somebody else in your family has it. If you have kids, which we're both dads, your kids, had to get tested and stuff as well. Are you able to share with us your experience with that, as far as, always there? Did it develop? And did you have to have your kids tested like how I did with my cardiac diagnosis?
Well, that's a lot, but so when I was going through my whole deal with them trying to understand what was going on, they weren't so much concerned with history because it's not supposedly genetic. Like that's the first thing they say. It's not genetic,
Okay.
supposedly. Like they can't find any biological markers that say you're born with this, so you're gonna have this too. Um, but it's environmental.
Hmm.
So one could argue that if your parent had it, you could potentially have it too, because that is the environment you're being raised in. So
Okay.
it doesn't have to be genetic to be passed on from parent to child. So there's that complication of transmission, I guess you could say.
Got you.
It's not biologically transmitted, um, but growing up in a household with potential mental illness, because I won't say my parents had any mental illness, but it wasn't the healthiest atmosphere. Um, I think ultimately, as parents, you don't know what you're doing per se, no matter how many books you read, no matter how much preparation you have. It's like going to war. The plan goes out the window immediately upon
Mm-hmm.
first contact. Um, so my parents didn't have the tools or weren't equipped to like to do the job, but they did the best they could with what they had. Um, and and nurture versus nature. That's a tough one. Yeah, it's a tough one. And see, and that's the thing. My parents were hard on me, and I think it's because I was the first. Because I think I feel like you're harder on the first.
Firstborn,
Um,
baby. Whoop
yeah,
whoop.
but as I come to understand it, most people are harder on the first. They make all the mistakes on the first, learn from that, and do better on the second. And I hate
Yeah,
that that sounds really bad, but it's the reality
that's
of
how I think too. I think we're like trial and error babies.
and and I feel like that's true because I was the first. I felt like my sister was treated better, and I feel like my siblings, my brothers afterwards were treated much better. It could have been age. For my parents, there was a difference because I'm like 16 years older than my youngest brother. Um, it could have. There's lots of factors, but my parents were not equipped to be nurturing, loving parents. It doesn't mean they didn't love me. They weren't able to, because they showed their love in different ways. Let's say our love languages were different. Let's go like that. My father's love language was service. He worked every day, he busted his ass, and that's how he showed his love. But as a child like myself who was emotionally needy, I didn't feel like my father loved me. As an adult who spent many years in therapy to understand the nuances of emotion and thought and brain chemistry, I understand my father for who he was now as an adult, and we reconciled some of those things as I got older. Um, but there was a lot of instability in my upbringing between my parents and their relationship and my parents and my relationship. There was a lot of instability. There was a lot of inconsistencies and failures, both on their part and on my part. But that's parenting. That's life. It's not perfect, and it's not going to go well. Not every time. Um, and there was a lot of things they did very, very wrong. Um, my father and I reconciled a lot of those things, and I understood him for who he was, and um, I appreciated him for the things that he taught me. And he taught me those things without telling me. He taught me those things through example. And at the time, I didn't know or understand or appreciate. But as I got older, I did come to understand and know and appreciate. Um, I think the big problem with history of illness is that I don't know that there's never been a diagnosis with my parents. So if they do struggle with anything, they've done so successfully without ever being diagnosed. I'm not going to say that my parents had mental illness, but I feel like I definitely got it from somewhere. Um, and it could, because I mean, let me tell you, my upbringing was fucking harsh. Between growing up in the ghetto and the nuances of what was happening, um, public school, um, uh, and a pretty crazy relationship between my parents and my family, a lot of mental health disorders, and not mental. Let me not say that. A lot of people who seemed very unstable in my family. Um, so I feel like it was genetic, but again, it's just environmental.
Man, I have a comment on that.
Hmm.
I
Sure.
overheard somebody talking the other day, and when they said it, it made so much sense to me. And it was on the subject of uh dating. All right, it was around dating and relationships around dating. And one of the things that they talked about, they said that there's people out there that have undiagnosed trauma and issues
Absolutely.
that when they want to try to have a relationship with somebody else, all right, if you came from a underprivileged area, where you saw fighting and poverty and
Hmm.
all this other stuff, even if you've made it out, all right, like let's say you got out of that environment, there's things that, for lack of a better word, you have like post traumatic stress from
I've
the
talked about
events
that
that
with you
came
before
from
too.
your environment. Yep,
Yes,
yep,
I've
me,
mentioned
yep.
that exact thing. I
Mm-hmm.
have that thought that people who grew up in violent areas, like just because it's not domestic violence at home, just because it's not a mass shooting, doesn't mean those events don't leave trauma. Like gang violence, shootouts, um, being beat up over and over again by multiple people. Not to mention the fact that that probably causes physical trauma. It does. It does create psychological trauma. Um, the thing is you just go undiagnosed. um, you may never, like, they may not have access to mental health services. They may not have ever even they may never even come to the conclusion that they should seek mental health services. So yeah, there's loads of people going around with undiagnosed trauma that have just found a way to make it work. And I mean, ultimately, that's all we're doing. That's all everyone does, is just try to make it work. But it doesn't have to be such a hard path. It could be a healthier path to success, and ultimately you don't have to carry that baggage around with you the rest of your life. But yeah, I think there's loads of people out there with undiagnosed trauma. um, Life is hard. Life is rough. um, I'm lucky to be alive, and I think a lot of people can say the same thing. um, I mean, life wouldn't be worth doing if it was easy. So
Yeah, man. Uh, I agree with that statement, and I disagree with it as well.
mhm, of
And
course,
then, and
of
yep,
course.
and yep,
It's one
and
of
me and
those
you,
things that it's real and it
yes.
sucks, but it's real. You know what I mean?
Yep, just like and this is a little bit off topic, but one of the things that I like to stress with people who I mentor is, embrace the suck and the things that you find uncomfortable, because that'll help you grow. Like,
Hmm.
that'll help you find out who you are. All
Yeah.
right. And I get frustrated at people that don't want those challenges, that don't want to
Yeah.
see what they're made of, because of whatever reason. I'm not gonna say that they're scared. Um, but I ask myself, well, how are you living?
Hmm.
How are you going to know yourself if you've never really,
Yeah.
been
If
in anything?
if there was only ever light, then there's no day because there's only ever light. So there's no day, there's no night. That's like if there's only ever good, then there's no good at all because it's always the same.
Yeah, man.
There's got to be varying degrees. There has to be changes. There has to be fluctuations. That's what makes life worth living, you know?
Did your relationships change for the better or worse immediately after you got your diagnosis?
That took time. I definitely took about a year and a half of being alone, working on myself, getting sober ish. I struggled with that for a long time. Um, it took time. It took some time, and it was deep therapy. Like I was going 2 or 3 times a week, um, AA, group therapies, solo therapies. Um, it took time, but I mean, I had gone 24 years of my life, 25 years of my life living this one way. It was really hard for me to understand that that wasn't normal. So I had people tell me at 22 years of my life that, this is not right. And I'm just like, what are you talking about? I was perfectly fine. I felt fine. I thought I was fine. Everything, I was enjoying myself. I was having a great time. Like I was doing whatever I wanted. And then it was just like, but that's not how everyone else lives. And I was like, huh, interesting. And I didn't want to agree with it. I didn't want to believe it. I fought for a couple of years against medicine and treatment and lots of things. But once I got under control and I got on this really good med that I've been taking now for almost for about 12, 14, 15 years now. Um, it's helped a lot. And over the years, I've had to modify and supplement it with other medications. Um, but my relationships got better once I could think in a healthy fashion. Um, a lot of my previous stuff was so much negative view of myself that I was trying to be somebody I wasn't to please the people around me. When I realized when I stopped and I said to myself, I have to be who I am from day one because I can't sustain that for 40 years of my life if I'm going to marry somebody. And ultimately when I met my wife, she was the first real person I dated after this year and a half, almost 2 years of therapy and all these other things. I laid it out for her point blank. I from jump. Like we were dating a week and I just laid it out. I just was like, look, this is who I am. This is what I deal with. I'm not going to change for you. Like this is me. Like if you like this, this is what you will get. If you don't like this, that's fine. We're not too deep into this that it will break our hearts, and she accepted me and we've been together 13 years now. Um
So this is how I heard that conversation. Hey, shorty, look, you cute and all, you know what I'm saying? But check it, all right? I'm gonna have to let you know this. Now, if you want to rock with me and all of this Nievesness that I got going on, then let's go. But here's your out right now, shorty. Take it or leave it.
If she spoke English as well as she does now back then, I would have totally done something like that. But she didn't. She English wasn't her first language, so it was like it was a little touch and go, like a little bit of translation happening.
Man, like it's so funny knowing you now because I would like to know what a mid 20-year-old Joe, like how he was. Like,
Bro,
so
I was
we
out of control.
we have a mutual friend that we know, and I'm not going to say his name, but we talked to him earlier today. Now he knows this because I told him this. I said when he was younger, and I saw some of his younger pictures, I'm like, you had a very punchable face. Like if I saw you, I just want to punch your face because you have a very punchable face. Like, were you a punchable face type guy when you were younger, or like were you able to blend in with the crowd when you were in the military
so,
and in your younger days?
so that's a funny one because that way that I was in relationships with significant others was actually a similar to the way I was for my friends. I would be what I needed to be for whichever group of friends I was with.
Mm,
So I grew up in the projects. I lived in the ghetto, so I was ghetto. I talked the talk, I walked the walk, I dressed the way I had to dress. And as that evolved to other groups, like when I joined the military, it was a lot less like that. It was a lot more formal. And when I was around other Hispanics, I would be more Hispanic. When I was around whiter people, I would be more white. Um, Whichever demographic I was around, I modified myself to blend in because ultimately I just didn't want to stand out. I didn't want to be unique. I didn't want to be different. I wanted to be accepted and I wanted to be a part of the group. Um, because ultimately I was longing for connection forever. I was always longing for connection with people because I felt disconnected. Like looking back and understanding what was wrong with me now, I understand what was wrong with me then. Why I never felt like I was part of something. Like the army was the first time I really truly felt part of something, more so than my own family, which hurts and it's hard to hear and it's hard to say. Like I don't want my family to think I don't love them, but I never really felt like I was a part of that family.
mm,
Um, for the army, ironically, I felt like I was a part of something, even though the army doesn't care about you. Like they say they do. You feel like you're part of something, and you have this great mission, and you're contributing to the. But the machine keeps rolling along with or without you. But at the time, I felt like I was a part of something great. And I feel like our community, we hold on to that, and we feel proud of that, and that connection is why I'm so close with you and with other veterans, um, that I know, and I feel more connected to veterans because we have shared life experience and stories, and we've been through the shit together. And I, despite having grown up with my family, I don't feel that connection. Like I love them like deeply, like I care about them, but we're not the same kind of people. We don't like the same things. We don't do the same things. Um, and it sucks. It sucks because I love my brothers, I love my sister, and their families, and they have beautiful families. Um, but it's hard. Like I keep to myself. I stay isolated. I live thousands of miles away from them, um, because it's just easier for me. You know, it's crazy. It sucks. But it's my reality. It's a bit
ma-
of it's a little self-imposed, but
Now it's hard for me to ask this next question because I don't think that there's really a right answer for it. So I've met your wife. Shout out to her, by the way. She's awesome, man.
she does everything, man. She's amazing.
She's a really cool person. So she married you after you put a lot of stuff up front on Jump Street.
Hmm.
And I can say this because we've talked about it in our podcast. You know, she's not a U.S. citizen. All
No.
right. So, was there any big worry with you in, saying this to somebody that, she knows you as a service member at the time, you're in her country, and, having to explain this thing to her that she was going to just run, be like, you know what? Time out. Flag on the play. I'm out. Was there that ever really big worry with you? And if she would have said no, you would have been like, well, I don't think that this is ever going to work out for me. I mean, she stood by you for a long time, brother. That's
Yeah.
man, that's saying something right there.
So
Um, so
so
talk about
that's
that.
yeah, that's there was a lot. Of course, there was fear in the beginning. But my thing was at that point, I didn't care anymore because I had spent so much time of my life wanting other people to like me without even knowing who I truly was, that I didn't care if people liked me now that I finally accepted who I was. Like, if you like me and you want to be my friend, awesome. If you don't, oh well. I don't need you. You know what I mean? I spent so much time needing people that I realized how stupid it was. How much I once I got healthy, once I got medicated, once I went through therapy and I understood the nuances of my illness, I realized how I felt like the old me was pathetic. And honestly, the funniest part about it was it wasn't getting healthy that was the starting point of my growing up. It was going to Iraq and coming back. Like after that, I was like, fuck, I was stupid before. Like I was pathetic before. Like I went from being a boy to being a man. Obviously, war will do that to anybody. Being a girl, being a woman, being a boy, being a man, that sort of thing. Like a coming of age. Who'd have thought war would do it? Like, I mean, usually you just do that naturally. It doesn't take ultimate adversity to get you there. But it did. And getting healthy after years later, healthier, not healthiest, um, I came to understand those things. Um, but yeah, there was a lot of fear, or not so much. No, no, there was not so much fear.
Hmm.
But when I get down, when I get depressed, I start to second guess myself. I start to second guess not our relationship, but that she'll be here forever. Like I worry that one day this will be too much. Again, that negative appearance that I feel like I have with my friends, I feel like I have with my wife sometimes. And that's
Hmm.
on me. That's not a her thing. She never gives me the impression she's ever going anywhere. And we joke about it all the time. Like we joke like, you're never leaving. I've ensured you can't go, I joke with her. I've hidden a bomb somewhere and if you go, it's a joke. But like but in my dark moments, there is that fear, that very irrational fear, and that's the key. It's a rational fear. Um, we've built this amazing life, and it's taken a lot of work, a lot of effort, and a lot of functioning as a singular body. Um, but yeah, the fear exists, but because I can't control, like when people have their what's it called when you're insecure, your insecurities.
Okay.
Mine are just amplified to 11 when I'm going through these dark moments. And so yeah, I fear. Ironically enough, when before I would just not be fearful at all. Um, but yeah, it definitely on those dark days for sure. But other times, no, I'm not afraid. She's amazing, and we've built this incredible life, and it'd be hard to walk away from that for me or for her.
So, question then, brother.
Hmm.
Now you have your therapy, you have the stuff that you have to do and take. to go from day to day. Does your
Yeah,
spouse do things as well, knowing that, she's a supporter of you, that y'all are a unit?
yeah.
Does she go through things or get, I don't know what's the right word, briefed on how to interact with you if you're on one of your lows and things like that? Like, how did she acquire the knowledge to know how to work as a team with you?
So it started with a book that I told her that when I was going through treatment, somebody recommended to me, and I read. It was called An Unquiet Mind. Um, and that's the first thing I told her, to read this book. A lot of what that person went through, I went through. And she read that book and she read other books, and we talked a lot. We talked so much, and we still do. Like, it's great. Like, I've like 13 years and we haven't run out of things to say to each other, which is amazing. But we talked a lot. And as things changed for me, and as I went through more therapy, we talk more. So she learned a lot from me. Yep, Dr. K. Jameson. Yep. It's a great book.
My assistant is on it, brother. I'm telling you.
um, so she learned a lot from me. She learned a lot from reading and researching, because she wanted to understand. She cared for me immediately, and that's one of the things that let me know. Like, that's what made me fall in love with her. She's such a caring individual. She cares so much, and it's so amazing because she's the absolute opposite of me. I'm a very negative thinker. Like, I fear the worst in people, and she sees the best in people, and she definitely grounds me in that regard. But yeah, she's done a lot of like stuff, and she does things for herself when she needs to. She can do, I should do, if she wants to do something, I'll be like, knock yourself out, man. Like, you don't need to ask me, just go do it. I'm like, you in control. I'm along for the ride. I want her to be happy. I'll give her whatever she wants so she's happy. You know what I mean? Because I know how much she sacrifices for me, and I know how much she does for me. Exactly, balance. It's all about balance, and she brings that. Like for a person like me with the deep issues that I've had for so long, and she's got this counter life to mine. And it's funny because I don't view it like, oh, I'm jealous, or oh, I wish I had that, because it's unrealistic. I've had my life already. I've already experienced it. I can't change anything. And I'm not jealous of her. I don't envy her. I appreciate what she's experienced and the life she's had, because it hasn't been easy for her either. Her challenges and her things are just different. Um, but it gave her that counter perspective, and it didn't taint her view on the world, which I love. She definitely views the world in a much more positive perspective, and that helps me a lot.
Good deal. Good deal. Yeah. Shout out to her. As
Yeah,
me and you said earlier, she is definitely an
she's
amazing
pretty awesome.
person. I've seen y'all two work extremely well together, man. And it's definitely awesome to see as an outsider.
Yeah.
Um, what about work, man? Is it something that you go into your job with, and letting them know? Do you keep it like, obviously we're on public forums right now, so if
Yeah.
somebody were to happen to look you up, they could hear you or see you
Exactly.
talking about the
Exactly.
subject, but do you bring it up around your coworkers at all?
So this is touchy because I've had really good experiences with coworkers and bosses that I have explained it to, and I've also had bad experiences. So with sometimes I say what's up, sometimes I don't. I'm not going to say when those times are. I'm not going to say when the times were good and when the times were bad, because that's unfair. Um, More nowadays, I'm more private about it professionally, because again, I think it paints a picture, and people sometimes assume you can be cured, or wonder how long this is going to be, or if they know why you're taking time off, then how many more times are you going to do it? So it's one of those things where I'm private about it for the most part, and if my coworkers now found out about it, I really don't care. I'm in a decent place. I'm in a good place, and I work hard to stay there. Um, what I try to do is move on from a position every 5 years. I feel like, because again, I feel like people think you're going to be cured, or you're going to suddenly be better, or all the work that you put in is going to get you to an end goal. But what they don't understand is there's no better. There's no end goal. There is stable and unstable. And I strive very hard to stay stable, and I will have to struggle through the times when I'm unstable because they are a reality. They are an eventuality. I can't do anything about it. It's going to happen no matter how hard I try, no matter how hard I work, because biologically my body can't stay regulated. And that's okay. Like, I'll work through those times. I'll take time off from work, however long that may be. And sometimes that's frustrating for coworkers and for bosses, and it sucks, but it is a reality. It doesn't make me less effective because I still do my job well, and I've done so in multiple different places. But I know that it does wear on people because they have an expectation. Um, Whether that's a feasible expectation is irrelevant because it's what they
Hmm.
have. I can't do anything to change that. So I try to move on every 5 years or so and move to another place because it allows me to start over, go through the whole rigmarole again, and ultimately I feel like I'll wear my stay thin, and then I'll find a new position somewhere. Um,
Oh, I'm sorry. Go
Go
ahead.
ahead. No, go ahead.
I forgot where I read that at, but like, there's a reason why command is, a set amount of time or
Hmm.
whatnot, and like it has to do with like unit structure and change and like the effectiveness of that person. Now,
Hmm.
uh, I have a little bit different idea. I would love, like, this is the longest, the current job that I have now, outside of the training portion of it. It's the most in one place that I've sat at in the longest period of time. Because when I was enlisted in the military, three different locations in 9, almost 10 years, where I moved every like 3 years, and my current position or job, man, it's been one of the longest, and I love the stability of it. I love knowing what I have to do on the very next day or in the upcoming week. And there's minimum change that's involved. And when it does, we have change procedures in place to help make that change as less stressful as possible. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah.
Going from
Totally.
one thing to the next. I don't plan on leaving anytime soon, but there's a lot of reasons for
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, see, and that's the thing. Like, I understand, I understand stability. Like, I love that I have really good job security. Um, and in the sector that I'm in, that job security follows me. So it makes it much easier to do this. But ultimately, I got to do what keeps me mentally healthy. And unfortunately, other people's opinions of me will eventually wear thin or wear on me.
Let me ask you, and there's a reason why I wanted to bring up the work part and the stigma of it
Sure.
all, because you have a portfolio and a body of work that you can show as what you've done.
Hmm.
All right. So can you talk about why people will have a stigma if they know that you have some type of mental diagnosis, where you can say, hey, look, here's my body of work, man. Judge me on that. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? Not what you may think or assume. Why
So,
do people do that?
and that's something I question all the time because I would I would jump through hoops to ensure that my work would continue without me, almost like automating it. Um, Anything that could be, I would automate or prepare or work a little harder to make sure that nobody would have to do my work. Like I would work really hard to ensure nobody would have to do anything for me in those absences to the best of my ability. And I don't think I've ever had to see, and that's the thing, if they don't tell me, then I don't know that it's happening. But as I understood, nobody would have to cover down for me. So I never understood that. As well, as I understand it, I've never caused hardship on others by not being at work. Like if I took leave, like vacation or sick leave, um, there'd be no reason for anybody to sweat it because everything was done, or it was done ahead of time, or it was pre-planned and programmed, or you know, I would handle it when I got back if anything popped up out of the blue. It was the simple fact that I wasn't there.
Hmm.
And there was understanding in the beginning, there was understanding in the middle, but towards the end, not so much. And I couldn't understand it. I mean, but there was definitely, in one of my previous positions, there was definitely those subtle hints, those little, maybe you should be doing something else. Even though people would ask for me, people would want me to be a part of things that I had no business doing, but because I was good, they wanted me. And I loved it. I enjoyed every minute of it when I could.
Gotcha.
When I couldn't, I absolutely couldn't. You know what I mean? And then after a while, I just realized it was taking a toll on my health, trying to being really good at what I was doing, being really successful at what I was doing, but ultimately not pleasing the person I needed to please.
Which is you,
No, my boss.
your boss.
Always
Okay.
your boss. Because I can be happy with I was happy with what I was doing. I was confident that I was good at what I was doing. But if my boss doesn't feel that way, regardless of the fact that there's no reason not to, I can't do anything about that. Ultimately, I leave because I can't change their minds. If the proof is in the pudding and they still choose to not appreciate that, then I gotta go. I can't make myself sick trying to please them or prove to them that I'm still really good despite these flaws. You know, I mean, that's all we can do is just take care of ourselves.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Now, I have this thing that I always tell people look, I'm selfish because the number one person that I'm going to start with giving all of my resources to
It's
is this
yourself.
guy.
Yeah, exactly, exactly, and that's how it
and
should be for everybody.
I'm a father, man. You know, some people are like, oh man, I'll do, starve for my kids and all this and that. Like, nah, I'm gonna figure out a way that I have enough nutrients to provide protection and be able to work, as well
So
as ensure that my kid doesn't starve,
yeah, it's
as
funny. It's
well.
funny. My wife comes from Germany, and Germany during the war was rationed, and afterwards, because their economy was struggling after the wars, there was rationing and things like that. And the bulk of the meal would go to the fathers. And I hate to that sounds archaic and it sounds bad, but ultimately because he had to work harder to provide for the family, he had to be able to. Because if he skimps and he can't physically keep it up anymore, then the family starves and dies. So a little bit more had to be given to him to be able to take care of them. And I think that's the same for anybody, everybody. I'm not saying give your kids less food. That's not what I'm saying, because
Exactly.
it's very symbolic. It's almost like a metaphor. What
Yes.
I'm saying is you have to take care of you to take care of them. If you don't take
Hmm.
care of you, because that's what a lot of men do. I feel like a lot of men don't take care of themselves. Ladies, you take care of yourselves. You still need more. Everybody needs more. And but I feel like ladies are more in tune with taking care of themselves. Men were told to shut up and just deal with it and be a man and don't cry and don't feel because that's not what men do. And that's not right. Everybody feels. It's a biological imperative to feel. You know what I mean? To deny that is to deny being human, and that causes all kinds of issues, you know. But yeah, you got to take care of you first. This goes for the husbands, the wives, the men, the women, the everything in between. You got to take care of you. And yeah, sometimes that means exiting stage left too, you know.
Hey Joe, there's this book that I'm going to read, and I'm curious what your thoughts on it as well. It's right here. It's called Battle Cry: Waging and Winning the War Within by Jason Wilson. And I'd like to get you to read it after I'm done with it. I'm like 3 chapters in right now. I told myself I was going to be finished within the first month of reading it, but I'm behind, and it's all my fault. You got Alicia Kusar said, me time is so important.
It is.
Absolutely,
It is
absolutely, me time is
super
important.
important. And the more
And
people you got to take care of, the more time you got to allocate to yourself.
yes,
That's what people don't understand. Like taking care of other people is hard freaking work.
hmm
Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, who you are. Take time for you. You need it, and that includes work because work will still function. Like work will keep rolling. You know what I mean? If you leave a position, they'll replace you. Like that never stops. But if you don't take that time, that thing will roll right over you. Right over you. So
hmm
always take the time when you need to. It doesn't matter if you have mental health issues or not. Take care of yourself.
Hey, shout out to Jermaine. He was on one of my prior episodes as well. That's a family
So
member who married the person who commented right above. And the first time that I've spoken to him was live on this show.
awesome. That's
Coach
fantastic.
G. Well, hey, Joe, man, we are past the time. I try to keep the
Oh,
show at an hour, but man, that hour goes by super fast.
isn't it
So
though?
so thank you for coming on to the show. What the people don't know is we saw each other at a different function right before we came
Hmm.
here. And then we also saw each other the last time. We're nerds. All right. I'll say that.
Yeah.
Nerd used to be something that was taboo. My daughter will proudly say that she's a nerd, and I love her for being able to say that and not feel any type of way about
I
it.
love that she can do that these days. Like that is
Yes.
not something that gets you like doesn't make you a pariah. It's
Uh huh.
accepted. It's like come on down, be a part of the crew, you know?
But me, you, and a couple of friends, we've tried to make it a regular thing that certain movies or things that come out that we go out, catch the movie, and
Hmm.
then go and grab lunch or something afterwards and
Hmm.
talk about the movie. We end up talking about the movie and other things as
Lots
well.
of stuff. Yeah.
Y'all's nerd level is a lot higher than mine, so sometimes I just be sitting here like this, just nodding. Yep.
Well, growing up, comics was an escape for me. So I love comics, man. I mean, I love fantasy. And remember, this goes into my whole love of writing. Like I love escapism, like writing and literature as escapism. Comic books are just books. They're just with lots more pictures.
Hey, before I kick you off,
Sure.
I am going to call you out on something,
Okay.
and you probably know where I'm going with this. You put up a tweet at the end of 2019 that talked about your goal of creative writing and writing
Yeah.
this book and having this book idea. I found that tweet because I remember I was like, "When did he talk about this?" I found that tweet. All right,
2019. Oof.
I'm going to retweet that
Okay.
because it is my opinion that whenever you decide to get this from here to here
Yeah.
or digital and publish, hey man, I ain't saying New York Times bestseller, but I can see the realm in which that is a possibility somewhere in the multiverse. So Joe, thank you for coming on to my show. I appreciate you taking an hour of your evening because you could have been doing something else, but you came on to my show. So thank you. I appreciate you, and I will chat with you soon, brother.
Take it easy, man. Thanks for having me.
All right. So that was my main man, Joseph Nieves. All right. And despite his name, if I were to say habla español, he knows what that means. But I'm gonna need for this brother to speak a little bit more Spanish in his life so that I can learn a little bit more Spanish myself. It's a selfish reason for that. Like I said before earlier, I'm selfish. So this was my episode of Chats with Dads for this week. Next week, I do not have a guest on, but I will be going live because I want to do this. I want to have a live stream where I talk about the finances of raising a kid, and I'm going to bring it up and prevent all of the statistics and data and analytics and all that jazz for the people out there that might be considering becoming a father, or those that have a kid. All right, so you might have an idea of what it takes, but sometimes seeing the information makes you go, holy crap, I didn't realize that. All right, so to everybody that tuned in and commented, thank you. I appreciate you taking the time to watch it live and doing the comments and stuff as well, giving a little bit of back and forth. To those of y'all that are going to catch this on the replay or on audio streaming platforms, leave a message, leave a comment, shoot me an email, theactualkingsmith@gmail.com. And if you're a father that wants to come on and chat with your boy, that's how you contact me. Or you can go to the Facebook community page, facebook.com/theactualkingsmith, and write me and say, hey man, I caught your show, Chats with Dads, and I'd like to come on and chop it up with you. I'm gonna have a guest in about 2 weeks, complete stranger to me. I met him through Uber and was talking about the show, and he was like, hey dude, I'd like to come on. I think that's fantastic. I think, talking about experiences and stuff is how we can connect in this connected world. All right. Have these experiences, have these conversations, and show that we're all living and breathing the same air. Some air is a little bit purified, better than others, but it is what it is. Thank you for tuning in. Take care. Have a good night.